Rusty Nelson being the photographer for about a year of the group.
Don't know. Haven't heard anything for, well, what, 2 weeks maybe?
Yeah.
12 days, 2 weeks. I'll let you know the moment I learn anything.
Okay. What about Colby's death? What do you know about that?
I just believe in my own mind, as sure as I believe that there's a God above, that Colby was done in, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
He, I had been with him within the last 6 days. Before that, we had, you know, where Union Station is in Washington.
Sure do.
Anyway, they have this kind of elevated in the middle of it place where you have food, you know.
Yep.
Right.
And so we go up there and we had our lunch and dinner, and we were just sitting there relaxing, you know. And I said to him, you know, you've had one of the most interesting lives of anybody. I said, what would you say were the 5 best years of your life? And to my absolute, utter surprise, he says, the last 5 that I've just had and the next 5. And I said, whoa, why? And he said, because I'm finally doing something that I think really I enjoy and I know is contributing to the good or benefit or overall benefit of mankind and justifying my existence. And I says, well, what are you doing? He says, I travel all over the world, meet with world leaders, and try to just be very blunt and honest in telling them kind of what's really going on in the world in terms of you know, consult with them and what's going in the world of the intelligence community and the good and the bad and what to watch out for and what to concentrate on and so on and so forth. And he says, I think I'm finally doing something where I directly know I'm impacting blah, blah, blah. And it was 6 days later. And you got to remember, this character, Colby, was without question the most meticulous person you'll ever meet. I mean, never a hair out of place, never a tie that isn't perfectly tied. I mean, just everything always perfect. So, supposedly, and I'd been with him several times too, he had a little cottage, I guess, on Chesapeake Bay, you'd call it, and he once in a while would go up there and we'd go sailing on it. He liked to sail, but his idea of sailing was only if absolutely the weather was guaranteed perfect and this was that and there was, you know what I mean. He was just so super cautious and careful. Made me wonder how the heck he ever parachuted behind enemy lines in World War II and worked his way up to be CIA head. But anyway, so supposedly he goes out of his house when it's getting dark,
right,
and supposedly gets in a canoe, and he allegedly going out maybe to his sailing boat, which he would never have done in 100 years at that hour, and supposedly leaves his TV on, his dinner half finished, the door unlocked on his cottage there, and takes off in this canoe and falls out and drowns. Well, officially, they've never claimed he drowned. And remember, his body wasn't found for, 10 days, and then suddenly it floats to the surface in better condition than when he was live. But anyway, so I just don't believe that that was a normal death. I think somebody, for whatever reason, done him in. But like he always told me, if it's done right, you'll never know who did it,
right,
or exactly how they did it. And they'll always be blaming someone else. And he gave me the best example of that. And I think I might have written this in the book. His best example was, what was the guy, Allende?
Allende, yeah.
Allende?
Right.
He says, we wanted, he was the one, he said, we, the American government, everybody, wanted him done in so quick, and we were even figuring ways to do him in. And he says, and then he got killed, assassinated, and he says, we took all the blame. He said, even though we really didn't do it, though we wanted to and would have. He said, but we didn't do that one. He said, that's the example of a perfect, CIA hit or a secret agency hit, where the one who did it is never known, and somebody else is blamed, and everybody automatically believes the other one, and just really don't know what happened. They're just dead.
Jeez. John,
John, I have information from a very credible source. He was shot in the head.
See, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Well, and
Remember when I wrote that book, right after it came out, they had a press conference of a whole mess of attorneys, and they all said, this is the most libelous thing we've ever seen. We'll sue this man Decamp, and on and on and on. And I had a press conference 10 minutes later, and I said, hey, man, if anybody said this stuff about me, I'd be suing him. I said, but remember, the one rule in journalism and everything else, truth is an absolute defense. And I said, I'm ready. I didn't write anything that I don't think I can prove. Well, there was only one lawsuit, but that was one I filed. I repeat, I filed against something called the Great Atlantic Telecast Company out on the East Coast, and they had one of the people named in the book move out there and become police chief or something. He had said on national TV there, well, this is a lie, none of this is true, and the TV station agreed with him and said, yes, yes, yes. So I sued him for libel, and 3 weeks after I filed the lawsuit, and they had made the statement, we'll kick you out, and beat you up, and they came to me and had done some investigating, and we reached a settlement, and the settlement was they had to pay me X number of dollars, which by our settlement I'm not allowed to reveal the exact amount, but it was a good chunk of change, believe me. Anyway, they had to pay me X amount of dollars, and also make a public apology 2 evenings in a row on their evening, 10 o'clock national news broadcast or something. Anyway, which they did, and that was the only lawsuit that's been involved from the book so far, even though, as I say, I got threatened by everybody.
And
that was Wilmington, North Carolina?
Wilmington, North Carolina was where the broadcast occurred. And
amazing.
Something called Great Atlantic Telecast Company. I have no idea what all they cover.
Yeah.
John, in your book, there was a question about, I don't know if this is in your book or not, but in connection with the lawsuit with Benassi, you were allowed to look at some pictures and so on and so forth, and then they put a gag order, and did they destroy those? Do you want to explain that?
Yeah. One of the things that federal courts can do, as you probably know and may have experienced, Ted, one of the things they can do is seal records and destroy, even literally destroy from existence, for example, depositions or evidence or pictures, if that's the order of the court. Now, let me give you the best example, because in my latest edition of my book, which came out 2 months ago, I had been involved very heavily representing some of the victims in the Columbine thing, and when all was said and done, in fact, I am the first and only one, to the best of my knowledge, I'm pretty sure this is 100% correct, I'm the only lawyer on the side of the children, so to speak, the victims, who has taken the depositions of the parents of this Harris kid, Harrison Klebold, and the doctors involved with them, and psychiatrists, and so on and so forth. And those were all ordered absolutely destroyed, and even they sent people back here to Nebraska to make sure I didn't have any in my files or safe or anything, and swore under oath that I had destroyed them and had turned them over to them. So I wrote in my book, the first crime of Columbine, the first crime was the killing of the children and the victims and the teacher by Harrison Klebold, the 2 kids. I said, but the second crime, almost as big, is the concealing and destruction of the information that I think all victims should be allowed to know about and see, and the whole story. And I said, I hope someday it comes out, and I'm sure it will. But at this point, as I say, I wrote, second crime is probably, in my opinion, and it's an opinion and a belief because I have to phrase it that way for obvious reasons,